After what was one of the longest drawn elections in US history, Joe Biden will soon take office as the 46th President of the United States. But the question now is, what will a Biden presidency mean for West Asia? Our next report explores what might change in the US foreign policy in the region under the new president-elect.
Trump's foreign policy was erratic, but there is no doubt that his presidency left a huge impact in West Asia. As Joseph Robinette Biden Jr. took stage as president-elect, West Asian allies are now waiting to see what Biden does in the region. While analysts believe that Biden will shift back to a more conventional foreign policy, the same one that the region has witnessed over years, experts continue to believe that he will make his presence felt in West Asia, a region that is now on the top of every US president's priorities. US-Iran ties were at their lowest under the Trump regime. Donald Trump withdrew from the Iran nuclear treaty and imposed strict sanctions, crippling Iran's economy.
We would love to be able to negotiate a deal if they want to. If they don't want to, that's fine too.
But Joe Biden promises an attempt to breathe new life into the nuclear pact. Biden slammed Trump's withdrawal as a dangerous failure and has often pledged to reverse Trump's withdrawal. But this is only if Iran moves back into compliance with its nuclear obligations. Biden's main aim is to project the United States as a partner whose word can be relied on. But rejoining the Iranian nuclear deal may not be easy. Last week, in an interview to a US media outlet, Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif said that Iran will, under no circumstances, renegotiate the terms of the JCPOA. Zarif said, and I quote, "If we wanted to do that, we could have done it with President Trump 4 years ago," unquote. Under Donald Trump, Saudi Arabia had a long rope. The president overlooked the kingdom's dismal human rights record. The murder of Khashoggi and the war in Yemen did not bother Donald Trump. But under Biden, that could change. And Riyadh realizes this. It took more than 24 hours for the Saudi leadership to congratulate Biden. When the message finally came, it was more bureaucratic than warm. On the campaign trail, Biden was a fierce critic of Riyadh. He accused the kingdom of murdering innocents in Yemen and hinted at ending US support for the war. This would be a huge blow to the coalition forces, since they are mostly dependent on American arms. The Democratic Party would love to hold Saudi Arabia accountable for rights violations. But as history has shown, the White House tends to mellow resolve. So the close strategic ties between the two countries will continue. After all, the US-Saudi alliance is the bulwark against Iran in West Asia. But the unconditional support from the White House is likely at an end. The US brokered normalization deals between Israel and the United Arab Emirates was seen as a major shift in West Asian policy, strengthening Israel's position in the region. While Biden is unlikely to reverse any of Trump's major Israel policy moves, like moving the US embassy to Jerusalem, Biden has voiced support for restoring support for Palestine. Currently, the White House has stopped financial contributions to the Palestinian Authority and its share towards United Nations Palestine aid. While as the 46th president, Biden may not have to do much to build on Trump's legacy. In West Asia, expectations are high for the president-elect. Till now, there is no clear indication on what his policy will be. We can be sure of only one fact, that it will be nothing like Donald Trump's. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
most recently sanctioned by the US, Lebanese politician Gebran Bassil is going to speak for the first time in an exclusive interview. But before we listen to what he has to say, who was sanctioned first and why? What does Hezbollah have to do with it? We take a look. The Trump administration has imposed sanctions on Gebran Bassil, Lebanon's top politician and former foreign minister over alleged corruption. These are the highest profile sanctions to be leveled against a Hezbollah ally in Lebanon till date. It comes at a time when Lebanon is reeling under a massive economic and political crisis. Bassil is Lebanese President Michel Aoun's son-in-law. And also the head of the Free Patriotic Movement. The party with the single biggest bloc in the Lebanese parliament. Bassil has wielded significant power and influence, being a part of successive Lebanese ruling coalitions since 2006. Announcing the sanctions, US Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin said, and I quote, "The systematic corruption in Lebanon's political system exemplified by Bassil has helped to erode the foundation of an effective government that serves the Lebanese people. This designation further demonstrates that the United States supports the Lebanese people in their continued calls for reform and accountability." Unquote. The sanctions now mean that all property and interests in property owned by Bassil will be blocked and must be reported to the US Treasury. All US people or entities are also prohibited from engaging in transactions with Bassil, and those who continue to do so may be subject to US sanctions. Though the State Department has cited corruption as its main reason for the sanctions, the move is being widely linked to Bassil's close alliance with Hezbollah. But Bassil isn't the only one. A few weeks ago, similar sanctions were imposed on former Lebanese ministers Youssef Finyanos and Ali Hassan Khalil. The US has been targeting Hezbollah with sanctions for years, but this is a first when former ministers allied to Hezbollah have borne the brunt. Both of them who have been accused of facilitating material support to Hezbollah and engaging in corruption. What has made these sanctions even more controversial and interesting is that the two sanctioned politicians, Youssef Finyanos and Gebran Bassil, are Christians. Historically, in its sectarian political system, Lebanese Christians have been considered closer to the West. Finyanos, who was first to receive the sanctions, has not made any statement till date, but WION has managed to get an exclusive statement from Finyanos. Youssef Finyanos said, and I quote, "The Levant Christianity has never been actually protected by the West. To be sanctioned is nothing of an agony compared to all the bloodshed, pains and sufferings of Christians in Iraq, Syria, Palestine and Lebanon. The West has always compromised the Christianity in the region to serve their interests." Finyanos also quoted the Bible in addressing the United States, saying, "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they have done." The leader of Lebanon's Hezbollah group, Sayyid Hassan Nasrullah, also commented on the sanctions, saying that US sanctions imposed on Christian politicians are aimed at exerting political pressure. Leader of the largest parliamentary Christian bloc, leader of the Free Patriotic Movement, son-in-law of the Lebanese President Michel Aoun, former foreign minister for many years, former energy minister. Gebran Bassil is a man with many jobs. He's been hated by many and cherished by his followers. What does he have to say after being sanctioned? This is the first time he speaks out. Let's see together part of his interview. Thank you for having us. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to be the first to talk to you after your press conference. Some people interpreted your press conference as sending messages to the new president-elect to the new administration in the United States. Do you think this would change? This would flip eventually?
No, what I meant is I know the position about Hezbollah is a bipartisan, policy. What I meant is the sanctions. Is it a really useful tool to get to the objective of the United States? This has always been a debate, whether sanctions or openness and dialogue. I believe dialogue would take into our case. Will this take them to their objective? I think not. It is something that will strengthen Hezbollah, not weaken Hezbollah. And it's something, when it is unjust, that will also make people sympathize with us.
Then again, there's just the practical, logical question that comes out. What's the concern with Hezbollah? It's Israel. In your press conference, you said ideologically you're not really on the same page with Hezbollah. So it was paradoxical, kind of paradoxical. Are you with the peace with Israel?
No, we are for the protection of Lebanon first. Okay. Independence and sovereignty of Lebanon, and for the return of the Palestinian refugees too. So no, we have our problems with Israel. What I meant by ideological, it's the position of Hezbollah against versus the existence of Israel by itself, where the Palestinians and all the Arabs are saying we accept the two states. Then you accept the state of Israel and you accept the state of Palestine. And this is the essence of the Arab initiative, which was taken in Beirut. So
you are aligned with that?
We are aligned with that. This is the official position of Lebanon, of course.
Something occurs to me. Would we live to a day, maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years, maybe 5 years, would I see you as a Lebanese shaking hands with an Israeli prime minister? Would that happen?
Our position is not to have peace unless we have our rights.
But it may happen.
If we have our rights, and the position of Lebanon has always been that it's not only the rights of Lebanon, it's for the Arab countries. So we are in a position where we have to have a comprehensive solution. The problem with Israel is Israel does not want peace, not us. We believe in peace. We don't want war to last forever. The problem is Israel is using the concept of force instead of the concept of rights. And what is our position is you base peace on mutual rights. Everybody has a right to preserve.
Still, if all that is sorted out, we might see you in the future doing that.
You might see me doing that when all the rights of the Arabs are really, the concept of the mutual rights is applied.
I would like to ask, what's the link between the normalization, the Abraham Accords, the Arab normalization with Israel, and our maritime border talks, and the future of the relationship with Israel?
I don't see a direct link. No. I think this is...
Nothing will change for Lebanon-Israeli relationships with all the Arabs now normalizing?
No, this is one issue. Like we solved some, complicated issues on the land. This is one issue that if we solve, it can help us to stabilize the region and, the issue of offshore gas in Lebanon.
If you gave in with that, would have you been saved from the sanctions? Was this one of the things asked from you, the maritime borders?
No, what I did about the maritime borders came out of my conviction that this is an issue that we should solve, preserving the rights of Lebanon. If it is one problem less and a step ahead towards stability, fine, let it be. We have no problem to. We are not looking to increase the problems with Israel in the region. We want to decrease them and to solve them. So if Israel would tell you, we'll return to you the Shib'a farms, we say no? Of course not. We want the Shib'a farms, the return of the Palestinians, the issue of the borders. So any problem we can solve, we strive.
I want to end the Hezbollah matter in one part. It is very obvious for anyone in Lebanon that politically, internally, in the governments, there has been many differences between you and your ally Hezbollah. And most recently, you said in your press conference there are thoughts about these differences. Would this break, eventually, would you break up with them, even after that you took the sanctions because of the alliance? Would you break the alliance?
It has nothing to do with the sanctions. Okay. We did the memorandum of understanding with Hezbollah because we thought it's in the interest of Lebanon. when it stops being the interest of Lebanon, we break it. It's not something sacred. But as long as it's serving the internal peace in the country, preserving the national unity of the country, and it can help us, to consolidate the concept of the protection of Lebanon. And this is very important. We are not for, eliminating another country or attacking another country. The aim of this is to protect the country. Very simple. Strong ties in the East where we are enrooted.
Okay. There's another question that I would really like to ask you. There's been a history of swimming against the river for President Michel Aoun, and you are following this legacy. It is one of a kind. You are one of a kind to be a Christian leader now in this time in Lebanon and to be undergoing all that. So do you think eventually, having the history of assassinations, do you fear for your life?
Fear for the life is something we live with. We accept it in this region, in this country, when we are fighting for our existence. So this is something that would not add or, decrease something of my positions, my political stance. So my answer is no. It's something I consider and I live with and I accept.
Isn't it a little bit larger now these days?
Maybe so.
This was only a part of the interview. Make sure to check all of we on social media platforms to watch the full interview because Gebran Bassil had a lot to say. Now, before we go further with our show and our reports, as usual, let's take a look at what's making headlines across West Asia.
According to reports, Mike Pompeo is all set to visit one of Israel's settlements next week. This will be the first time that a U.S. Secretary of State will visit an Israeli settlement in occupied territory, deemed illegal by most countries around the world. Saudi Arabia's King Salman urges world powers to take a firm stance against its arch-rival Iran, with Riyadh being wary about U.S. President-elect Joe Biden's pledge to revisit 2015 nuclear deal with Tehran. Dubai-based Emirates Airline posts a $3.4 billion half-year loss, its first in more than 30 years. Emirates says it has been badly hit by the coronavirus lockdown that brought air transport to a literal standstill. Bahrain's long-serving Prime Minister Sheikh Khalifa bin Salman Al Khalifa passed away at the age of 84. Dominant figure in the Gulf Arab Kingdom's politics, Sheikh Khalifa repeatedly put down opposition unrest during a half-century in power and was one of the longest-serving prime ministers in the world. Syrian President Bashar al-Assad says that U.S. sanctions and pressure on Syria's neighbors are obstructing the return of refugees who fled the conflict. Of Syria's 17 million people, over 5.5 million are living as refugees in the region, with most of them living in Turkey.
Chief Palestinian negotiator Saeb Uraiqat passed away at the age of 65 after he contracted COVID-19 last month. Uraiqat was known to be the face of the Palestinian cause for decades. Our next report takes a look back at his life.
A face of the Palestinian cause for the last 40 years, Saeb Uraiqat was a strong advocate of a two-state solution, fighting Israeli settlement on occupied land for decades. Born in Jericho in 1955, Uraiqat was just 12 years old when Israeli tanks rolled into his hometown. In 1967, Saeb Uraiqat witnessed a war that lasted for just 6 days. That changed everything for the 12-year-old Uraiqat and the whole of West Asia.
The departure of my friend and courageous brother, Dr. Saeb Uraiqat, represents a great loss to Palestine and to our people. We feel deeply saddened by his loss, especially in light of these difficult circumstances facing our Palestinian cause.
Uraiqat attended university in the United States. He then moved to England to complete a PhD in conflict resolution. A loyalist of former Palestinian President Yasser Arafat, Erekat has since been involved in Israeli-Palestinian negotiations and peace agreements. At the Madrid peace talks in 1991, Erekat wore the kufi, a symbol of Palestinian national identity. A move that was deemed controversial by many. He was involved in the crafting of the Oslo Accord in 1995 and was also appointed the top negotiator of the interim phase of peace talks in 1996. Since the establishment of Ahmed Kuri's cabinet in 2003, Erekat had been the Palestinian Minister of Negotiations Affairs. During the 2000 Palestinian uprising, when Israel declared Arafat irrelevant and placed him under siege, Erekat became more and more involved in international relations. Earlier this year, Erekat became one of the most vocal critics of the US brokered normalization deals, which saw the United Arab Emirates and Bahrain establish complete ties with Israel. But while fighting for the Palestinian cause, Erekat was also fighting against a lung disease. In 2017, he underwent a lung transplant in the United States, which eventually suppressed his immune system. The chief Palestinian negotiator was infected with coronavirus on October 8th. He was rushed from his home in the West Bank city of Jericho to Hadassah Medical Center in Israel, where doctors placed him on a ventilator. After his condition deteriorated further, he was put in a medically induced coma. Erekat passed away at the age of 65 on November 10th. In a major blow to the Palestinian cause. West Asia Bureau, WION. World is One.
In a bid to raise awareness about the desperate conditions of young refugees, Amal, a giant puppet of a Syrian refugee, is set to embark on an epic journey from the Syrian border all the way to Europe. Let's take a look at this heartwarming story.
Meet little Amal, a giant refugee puppet who is set to embark on an epic journey. From Syria to Europe, she's set to travel almost 8,000 kilometers to rewrite the narrative about refugees. The 11.5 feet giant puppet represents a 9-year-old refugee girl on a journey of hope called The Walk, an initiative to highlight the stories of refugee children. Amal is made out of lightweight materials such as cane and carbon fiber. This allows people to operate it for long periods of time in varied conditions. It takes 4 puppeteers to bring little Amal to life. 1 on each arm, 1 supporting her back, and 1 inside walking on stilts. The 4th puppeteer also controls the harp, a complex tapestry of strings that animate little Amal's face, head, and eyes. Amal is set to start from the Turkey-Syria border in April 2021 and will travel through Greece, Italy, Switzerland, Germany, Belgium, and France to finally reach back to the United Kingdom. But Amal's journey will not only highlight the plight of refugees, but will also reflect on their potential. West Asia Bureau, WION, World is One.
That's all we have for you on this episode of the West Asia Post. I will see you next week with a brand new lineup, bringing you more stories from the world's most volatile region. Until then, stay home and stay safe. I am Ghadi Francis, and you are watching WION, World is One.